Welcome to another episode of Women Investing in Women. My co-host Robin and I are deeply moved and very excited to feature different women making different kinds of impacts every day to lift other women up, regardless of the age, regardless of where in the geography they are. We as women need to step into our own power and lift others up so that each of them can live in their power. And you are going to absolutely love hearing about the woman and the work she is doing, the one we are featuring today. And I cannot wait for Robin to kick this off. Go ahead, Robin.
Awesome. Thank you. We are thrilled to have Kristen Andrus with us. I met Kristen a few years ago when she was the keynote speaker for a conference of the Mormon Women for Ethical Government. And Kristen was talking about a topic that an issue, a problem that I literally didn't even know existed right here in the United States, right here in this, 21st century. And it was a topic of young girls, and when they have their menstrual cycle, they don't have access to supplies. Maybe they're very poor, whatever the situation is, they just don't have access. And so then they're missing school, etc. And I was totally blown away. And I thought, oh my gosh, we have to have her on. So now we're finally having her on. Kristen is involved in many things, helping many people. She is just a powerhouse and an energizer bunny. And so, but my first question would be, how did you come about this topic that from my generation, you just didn't even talk about it? And so how did you get involved with this?
Yeah, thank you so much, Robin. Well, like anything in life, it came kind of out of the blue. I was volunteering. I love to engage my kids in service projects and volunteering and doing what we can. And so we would sign up once a month on Wednesdays to fill food bags for weekend bags for schools. And they asked us to sponsor a school. And if you know me, I don't leave good enough alone. And so I went to the school. I got to know the school. It was very high needs. The kids, it was about 90% free and reduced lunch. And so a lot of kids were living in poverty. And I ended up helping with Thanksgiving meals. And I remember I was standing on the back of a truck and I was kind of hoisting these frozen turkeys off of the truck into the middle school and talking with the social worker, Courtney Nolan. And she turned to me and said, Kristen, this is great. We need winter coats and we need, food drives for Thanksgiving. But what I really need for my girls here at the school are period products. And I looked at her and thought, wait, here, just miles from my home? These girls don't have access to pads or tampons. And she said, teachers are buying them. They're keeping them in their classrooms. Girls either don't have them or they don't have money to buy them. And every month, these parents are choosing between food and period products, not only for themselves, but for their daughters. So I started asking around, doing some, legwork on it, and realized that period poverty is alive and well, excuse me, here in the United States. And so, I'm sorry, really quick. So I went online. I have an online platform at the time. I don't know, I maybe had 50,000 followers, and I started talking about period poverty. And women like you, Robin, had no idea that this was going on. And so I asked for donations and said, let's do a big drive and drop these off to schools across Salt Lake City, Utah, where I live. So we ended up raising $35,000. Literally $5 at a time. My husband and I matched it. And so we filled my garage literally to the brim with period products. And I had friends come in their Suburbans and drop them off to schools. And a couple of months into this, my husband, who's a CEO of a business, said, Kristen, I think your supply chain needs some help. I don't know if, I need to be able to park my car. I don't know if we can keep doing this out of the garage forever. So I reached out to the Utah Food Bank and I asked them if they did anything with hygiene products, with period products. They came back after they sent out a survey and said, this is the biggest response we've ever had in the history of the Utah Food Bank. We need it, and we need it now. So fast forward 5 years, we now distribute 12 million period products across 300 pantries. Thank goodness not out of my garage, but out of the Utah Food Bank. And then the Policy Project and I partnered, and we were able to do this in every school. So we worked with the legislature to ensure that girls had access to free period products K through 12th grade in all Utah public schools. Universities then took it on, so all degree granting universities now do it. Prisons now have free period products. State buildings now have free period products here in Utah, and businesses are doing it. So it was a movement. It was a movement, and one that I was really proud to be a part of.
Fascinating and hard to believe that in the richest country in the world, this is actually a situation. But as a businesswoman, I'm not surprised because a lot of times everything we do is centered on the men and the world the men run, right? Office buildings are set up to meet the needs of men, not women. Medical research is done only on men, not on women. So women's needs are not something that is addressed as a profit-making activity, and therefore it's never surfaced. So I'm very grateful for what you are doing. And
Thanks.
I am curious to know if what you're doing in the state of Utah has been picked up and propagated across other states.
It has. We worked very closely with the Speaker of the House at the time, Brad Wilson, and we were hosting all of the speakers of the houses across the country. So they all came to Salt Lake City, and we were chosen as one of the three speakers and groups to speak and tell what we were doing in Utah. And we had many states reach out afterwards and ask how we had done it. Now, what I will say, the difference with Utah, so I won't name other states, but other states have done it. There was a couple that had done it before us. But what really set us apart, I would say, as a state, is that we developed a public-private partnership. And so if you look like states in California or Oregon, where this has been passed as policy, it is actually not being implemented. We had a couple of philanthropic families, including myself and Gail Miller, who actually paid for all of the dispensers to be put on the walls. The legislature funded the first few years of period products, and then the LEAs and the school districts took it on. We still are watching these schools. We are still ensuring that these schools are being held to the standard that this law set. And we're a small enough state where we're able to get that done and ensure that we don't just pass policy, but we want to make sure that it's actually being implemented and done. We just had a survey done with thousands of high school students, and the impact is real and it's happening, and girls are staying in school more often. As Robin mentioned, they are more willing to talk about periods and it's more comfortable for them. They're doing sports, after school sports, because they have access to period products. And so it is absolutely working here. It's also spread out. But I think with this public-private partnership, that ensured that we actually got this done. We weren't just, waiting for every school to individually choose how they did it. We had a clear path, a clear plan, and it's being implemented very well here in Utah.
That's really exciting to hear the process you went through to get it done across the whole state, and this notion of a public-private partnership, which can be highly effective if it's done well. I'm wondering, what kind of pushback did you get, if any, in wanting to move this from just my neighborhood schools to across the city to across the state?
What I would say in this policy for, in particular, is it didn't have any baggage. We're working right now a little bit on childcare and family support, and there's a lot of years of policy that hasn't passed, policy that didn't quite pass, and there's kind of a lot of baggage and layers to some of these big subjects that we're dealing with or issues. Period poverty did not. So it felt like we came in with fresh eyes, We kept it really, really positive. We did period packing parties. We had girls dress in pink. We, had a big thing at the Capitol where everyone was in pink. And it wasn't this demanding and negative and why haven't these men done it? But it was positive. And we brought students in and we had students tell their story. We shared real life examples. And really, I think we were bringing this to light for the first time, which really, really was to our advantage because I think even now, a conservative state like Utah could look at other states who have done it and thought, oh, well, that's not what we do. Idaho tried to pass it after us. They're, just north of us. They did not pass it. Because it kind of had some people were talking about it and there was kind of some baggage already on it. So I feel like this novel concept of period poverty, one, was shocking to people. Two, it was students, right? We were talking about students having access, just like toilet paper, just like hand soap, just like paper towels. And it kind of felt like a no-brainer. And that's how we sold it. And that's how we talked about it. And it passed unanimously, which was quite incredible. That doesn't happen a lot.
That is so beautiful to hear. And I am so, so grateful that you did this because this is not just something they need from a physical perspective. This underlies their psychological, emotional, spiritual well-being too. And the fact that everybody is talking, it's not a dirty little subject. It is natural. It is part of the human experience. There are so many elements that you've been able to bring together through this process. How can we take the lesson learned here to shift to other women's issues that are considered taboo?
Yeah.
Because there are so many other women's issues we need to address in this country.
Well, one of them, like you said, is, ripping off the band-aid and just starting to talk about it in a normal, natural way. Some of the best successes, and I would say most viral content that we had was that high school started calling us and saying, our boys lacrosse team wants to do a period packing party. You know, BYU athletes. We're going to do a huge without, 1,000 BYU athletes, boys and girls. So the guys are holding the tampons and they're writing notes. And I remember taking some pictures of some guys that said, 8, 16, 15-year-old guys that said, have a nice period. But they were talking about it. They went home and talked to their families about it. Their moms were talking to them about it. So it wasn't this shameful hidden thing. Once again, we kept it super positive. We invited the men and the boys to join in. They understood something that they had no idea. By the way, some of our legislature thought that you could hold a period. They thought, like you hold going to the bathroom, that you could hold a period. You can't hold a period, right? We said it's like a bloody nose. And so we were talking about this. Once again, it was not our idea to shame people into this, but to inform them and share, like you said, this is a natural, normal bodily function. We are all here because of a period. And I think because we made it fun, there was a sense of belonging. Women were able to enter into this issue. They weren't experts at periods. By the way, we were not experts at periods, but they felt very strongly about it. And so they joined in on our gatherings, on our events. They would then go to their schools and a club would do a period packing party. And so they would take ownership in this issue, not because they couldn't afford a period product, because there are girls in their classroom or in their school that can't. And so I think sometimes in broader issues, when it doesn't necessarily apply to us every time, we can be curious about it. We can find out about it. We can, try and get male allies. We have found a lot of success through our 4 years with the policy project, keeping very positive. That has just been first and foremost on how we do it. We bring everyone in. We say, bring your kids. If we're talking about teen homelessness, we're talking about childhood sexual abuse. We say everybody belongs talking about this because nothing's, at some point it's going to affect you. Or if it doesn't, get curious, start listening in, start learning. And then finding those sticky things that you care about. And we can all do better when we understand it and we get more proximate with the issue, we invite other people along with us and we just sit and learn about it. And I would say keeping it positive has made such a difference.
That's really exciting. I have my master's in applied positive psychology. And so I always resonate when, keeping it positive, even in areas where it's a tricky situation or it might be a difficult situation, like some of the other topics that you brought up. And that actually leads to a question I was thinking is, have you seen this approach of taking a difficult topic and kind of facing it head on and bringing in the community? Have you seen this transfer to other topics?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, we went on to teen resource centers where we now have half of our schools in Utah. Kids who are experiencing housing insecurity have access to showers, to laundry facilities, to a trusted adult, to help with FAFSA forms and internet and things like that. Child sexual abuse prevention education was a huge one. That was a very, very difficult topic. But what we found is we needed community buy-in. This wasn't just about policy. If there isn't a shift in the narrative, if there isn't a shift in understanding that here in Utah, we do have teen homelessness. We do have children, 15,000 or more, who are housing insecure, who do not know where they're sleeping. Now, how do you rally around that? How do you bring people to the table? What we have found is there's joy in finding solutions together. So you can find joy in coming together, in gathering, in finding solutions and not just band-aids, but really going upstream and ensuring that this doesn't keep happening, but that kids are graduating or that kids are being informed of abuse. We worked on cell phones in schools. So yes, this what we did with periods has absolutely been replicated year after year. And so far in Utah, with a very, conservative legislature, we have been able to pass everything that we've been working on. Free and reduced lunch is another one that is a child hunger is it's devastating. I mean, right now, what we're going through in our country. But we can come together. We can inform the public. This is what's going on. I would say mothers, get very proximate to issues. We understand things that maybe men wouldn't be able to as much, even if we're not experiencing it firsthand. And so we are all about bringing as many people to the table, informing them of what's going on, letting them know that we're not just going to talk about problems. We are going to bring, sustainable solutions to the table, and we need their help. If you care about something, you need to talk to your elected leaders. You need to talk to your legislature. Women are able to make big change in very hard topics. We just need to start talking about it and feel like we're the one that should be at the table. We're the one, even if we're not the expert, that can bring this up and make sure that kids are being taken care of, families, whatever it may be, women's issues or otherwise.
Absolutely important work, and amazing how time flies. And we're at that point in time. So before we wrap up, I want you to share with our audience how they can get a hold of you, how they can learn more about the work you do, so that they too can participate, engage, as well as take the cause into their own communities.
Yes. So my Instagram, where I'm very active, is Kristen Andrus. And then my website is kristenandrus.com. And I will say that I have met women who are dealing with specific issues with children that are trying to get things passed because they find the injustices and understand something at a very proximate and intimate level. And we have that power. So I love that. And I think all of us as women have that within us, and we can do that.
Absolutely, without a doubt. Robin and I are thrilled we had the opportunity to talk to you, Kristen. And the work you do is setting the stage for so much more to come. So we wrap this up with such a grateful heart for you and the work you do and the community that is supporting you and is an allyship with you to make this happen. And to our audience, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what challenge you're facing. take it head on. Take it with a positive approach. And the positive approach makes sure nobody's cornered. Therefore, they don't feel like they have to fight. And it allows us to do things with such joy. I mean, just the fact that Kristen referred to this as period party. Who puts the two of those words together, right? Having your periods is not a party. It's painful. It is, they say it is like having a sustained heart attack for 3 days. And so most people don't understand what it is. Not all women go through the periods the same way either. But what if we had the empathy, and what if we took this with a place of joy and truly make this happen because the outcome is important? And gathering everybody with joy to do it is the only way forward.